to EV in a while. Yay, button is ready. Let's do it. Let's go live now. Oh shoot, I totally forgot. I should have copied the link and gotten the tweet ready. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to those watching after the fact. I am super duper prepared as I'm pressing the go live button. Hey, live now at, that's the right link, right? Reads Tech, Richard, Jonathan Abraham, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We don't do a lot of EV live streams, but I like to do them on occasion just to figure out what most of the EV audience is curious about, or if you guys have questions that I'm ignoring. I want to be engaged. I want to be connected to all what y'all are asking. The thumbnail's a Cybertruck today because that's what's on the mind, considering we could very well see prototyping or testing of Cybertruck production around this time next year. I'm losing faith that we'll actually see it deliver next year, mainly because Giga Texas is going to be building Model Ys first, and we got to have Model Ys all over the planet. But hello, love your content. Thank you. Oh, appreciate it. Unreal Cousins, hello, welcome. CJ does Tesla, hi. Love from insert random country. Okay, Spain. Boom. We've got the love from that random country. Thanks so much, Spain. We appreciate that. Make sure I pick for a random Q&A. Yeah, there. Now the tweet's ready. Cool. Model Y rear-wheel drive coming. Apparently, if you ask Tesla customer service, they're going to tell you January, but I don't know if I should believe them or not because they've gotten a lot wrong in the past. So I don't even know if they're that reliable of a source from Tesla. I feel like Elon should say something. Though I will say, statistics-wise, it does make sense because based on what Elon has been saying in memos, it seems like they have an overwhelming demand problem right now, which I did a video on talking about. Basically, how the Model Y is getting way too many orders and the production facilities can't keep up with the number of orders they're getting. And because of that, I could understand why they wouldn't want to introduce a cheaper, longer range version of the Model Y that probably a ton of people will find very appealing and interesting. But because if they do, they're just going to get another huge influx of reservations that they can't match. So might as well do that in Q1, as in January through March, because that means you're going to end up with probably less sales because it's that time of year is weaker car auto sales wise. So if the orders die down and there's a bit less demand, then you can afford to expand the Model Y assembly line and take in more reservations. So I'm hoping next month we'll actually get at least some information. But yeah, I don't know anyone at Tesla, so I don't have any exclusive info. Wow, thank you for all your Cybertruck content. You're welcome. I have to thank Alwinart for making so many cool renders of. Honestly, I think the Cybertruck with the side mirrors thing looks pretty dope. I know a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, they'll change the law. They don't have to have mirrors on it. It's okay. The law will be different by then." But it's been a year now. Like when the Cybertruck was first unveiled, people were saying, "No, it can't work because you need mirrors on the side." And then I remember people saying, "Hey, no, wait, because by the time Cybertruck's ready, the law will be changed." And it's been over a year since it's unveiled and the law hasn't changed. So I'm not exactly sure if the law is going to be ready by the time Cybertruck starts mass production. And if they're prepping for the factory, you know, Giga Texas is screaming right now when it comes to the construction. Check out Jeff Roberts if you want to see how quickly they can get more steel structures up and concrete pillars and all that kind of stuff. It's just fascinating to watch how quickly they can scale production there. So if they're going to start prepping for Cybertruck production, I think they better have some street legal, you know, make sure the vehicle's ready for mass production, not just, you know, making it look like the prototype. Any leaks on when the holiday update is coming? No, actually. It's funny you say that. I was just thinking about it. Like he said that holiday update was going to be, you know, fire and whatnot, but I'm curious what will be in it because last year's was pretty major too. I remember thinking it was quite a big deal. Where's Elon's updated design on Cybertruck? Yeah, I wish we knew. What do you think about a smaller Cybertruck? I would be super duper interested in a smaller one personally because I love the Cybertruck. To answer another person's question, what's the best looking Tesla? It's very subjective, but I think the Cybertruck looks pretty dope. Like, it feels very timeless. It feels very intentional for like the purpose it serves. Like, it's supposed to be durable and rugged and practical, and the design serves that very well. And to me, it's kind of just ruined the design of all other pickup trucks. So it's iconic, it's recognizable, and it's functional, and it's practical. So for all of the benefits that come along with it, I think that's why Cybertruck's probably my favorite design. But my main concern, no, I have not ordered one. I have not ordered one, mainly because I barely drive at all right now. So it's really I, it'd be really hard to justify spending that much money on a car, let alone a truck. I hardly use a sedan right now. But my main concern with the Cybertruck is the size. Based on my buddy Randy from the Tailosive EV podcast has said, he got to check out the Cybertruck at the Peterson Automotive Museum, which is dope. He said it's bigger than he thought, and it's going to be. And I've driven big trucks before, and they are pretty difficult to park and navigate around certain parking spaces and certain parking lots. And the sheer length and width of that vehicle is probably going to be a little bit awkward to park, unless hopefully they give some drastic updates to the auto park system. But so far, auto park on Teslas is pretty spotty from my experience with it, just messing around with friends' vehicles and trying to get them to park and stuff. They're not great at auto park, but hopefully they can get better by the time the Cybertruck's ready. So a smaller Cybertruck would be way more interesting to me because I don't need a giant vehicle. My first vehicle was a Ford Ranger, so from 2000, which was a bit of a smaller truck. It was still practical, and it had a decent sized bed in the back you could load a bunch of stuff up on, but it was very easy to park and drive around. It wasn't like a giant tank like the Cybertruck is. So if they're able to provide all of the benefits of the Cybertruck, durability and practicality, but in a smaller design, yeah, especially if it's at a decreased price point, oh my God, that would be so amazing. I really hope they actually launch that in the United States, to be honest, because they're probably mainly focusing on that. Like Elon has said multiple times in tweets and stuff that they'll eventually build a smaller version of the Cybertruck for foreign countries, because current Cybertruck specs wouldn't do well in Europe at all. So I get why they want to build it smaller in other nations, but I hope they have a smaller option for this country too, because that's probably the one I would want. Go big or go home? Nah, I don't need the go big or go home mentality. By that mentality, just get rid of the Model 3 and only have the Model Y, you know? Small vehicle equals Ford Ranger truck. You are definitely American. It's not the Ford Ranger that they're selling now, I can tell you that. The Ford Ranger of 2020 is a lot bigger than the Ford Ranger of 2000. If you go look up 2000 Ford Ranger, not 2005 or anything, just 2000 Ford Ranger, that thing is pretty dang compact. It's about as small as I've seen trucks get. There's probably a few trucks that are a little bit smaller, but like it was like a 2.5 door. It was like 2 full-size doors and then 2 little side doors in the back. It could legally sit 5 people, but it was a stretch because the people in the back seat were on these tiny little fold-out seats that would face each other. So I don't want that on the smaller Cybertruck. I wouldn't even mind if the smaller Cybertruck was just a 2-door and it didn't really have much room for 4-seater, because I don't have kids and it's mostly just me and my wife if we ever do drive somewhere. But South America, no, I haven't seen much info or news about Tesla coming to South America. I'm sorry. They're probably focusing on the largest automotive markets first and prioritizing those, and then they'll hopefully make their way down over time. When do you think the single motor Cybertruck will actually be out? Ooh, yeah, probably. I could see them messing around with it by the end of 2022, but 2023 is probably the safe bet. Yeah. Let's see. Care to speculate on the ATV pricing? Well, it's not that complicated compared to the truck. It's a lot less materials. I'm not much of an ATV person. I used to ride around an ATV a lot when I was a kid, but I haven't done that in a while. But I don't know. They haven't really told us how big a battery it is. My guess would be 10,000. It looks cool though. It's a cool looking ATV. And I've actually never, anytime I've driven around an ATV, it's been very noisy and loud. So trying to envision an electric ATV is just kind of weird, imagining it going over hills and jumps and stuff, but it doesn't make any noise. It just sounds bizarre. So I would say 10,000 is my guess. I could be way off on that one. Do you think Tesla will eventually use stainless for all models? Well, probably not, to be honest, because I know that, think of how much stainless steel is not great if you want to do exterior paint. You have to do a lot of tricky things with paint if you want to do stainless steel on the exterior. So they're investing heavily into this next generation paint shop right now. Giga Berlin is going to do it first, but Elon said eventually that next generation paint shop will come to all the other gigafactories. I don't think they would be working that hard on the paint shop if they planned on converting all the vehicles over to stainless steel. I think it should be an option, and I would love more stainless steel Teslas outside of the Cybertruck, but there's a lot of people that don't like that look, and there's a lot of people that want the more classic, smooth, sexy lineup style cars with different color options and that kind of thing. I'm more in the boat of, just give me a car without paint on it, and if someone wants it to be a different color, they're going to wrap it. I mean, so many people are buying Teslas and wrapping them anyway. Why not just allow those people to buy a Tesla without paint on it? Because there's this whole expensive and complicated part at the end of the Tesla manufacturing process that just gets covered up by the owner anyway. So just skip that process, save herself some money. You think the single motor Cybertruck will actually come out, or will it get scrapped like the standard range 3 and why? Well, those are two different examples. The standard range 3 did come out. It's just now, since then, been scrapped. And there is a standard range plus Model 3, which is pretty close to the price they originally promised. But yeah, it's a tough one, because Tesla could probably easily make the argument that most people aren't ordering the single motor Cybertruck, which is, true. When they first got their huge bulk of reservations, it was something like 40% dual motor, 40% tri-motor, and then like 20% single motor. So they could be like, okay, this isn't the most popular option, so we won't keep it around. But the main difference is, like with the Model Y, they never ever took reservations for the standard range Model Y. They announced it at the event that was only a year ago. Oh, a little over. It was more like a year and a half ago. It was March of 2019 when we had the Model Y event. It's just weird because they're all over the place now. But they announced there would be a standard range Model Y with 230 miles of range and a $39,000 price tag, but they never accepted money for it. Whereas Cybertruck, they are accepting money for it. They're taking your money right now on the website to reserve a single motor option. So I have a feeling they would get quite a bit of backlash or bad press if they ended up saying, okay, we're going to take all these people's reservations for a $39,000, $39,900. So basically $40,000 Cybertruck with a single motor and 250 miles of range. We're going to take all those reservations, hold on to them for 3 years, and then be like, actually, we're not going to make them, and just refund everybody. Like, yeah, they could do that. I don't think legally they would be in much trouble if you take a look at all the fine print Tesla gives you when you make a Cybertruck reservation. They do some, they disclose things like the price might change, and it is refundable. So it's not like they're in legal trouble, but I do think that it would be a little bit of a bad look if they knew that they accepted $100 deposits for years and then didn't make that model. So I hope they make that model, but I wouldn't be shocked if they don't keep it around for the long term, just because they don't see the point with demand for the single motor being lower. But Q1 2021 Model S refresh, I hope so. It sounds like it. I mean, so many people reporting on it because the factory line's being shut down for a long time. I mean, sometimes they shut down assembly lines for a week, maybe 2, but this is like 18 days. That's a long time for the Model S and X to be shut down. So yeah, I'm in agreement with Electric and their article saying that they're most likely going to be swapping some stuff out or providing some kind of refresh. I hope it's an external and internal, but we could be just looking too much into it. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to do like a 2021 Model S refresh type. Normally they don't do the year thing, but maybe they will this time. Here's my question, says Matt. If you pay more on the down payment for your Cybertruck, do you get an earlier delivery date? No, I don't think you can give more on the down payment right now. Delivery dates are very random and they're not in order of who reserved them. So it's not like if you order a Cybertruck now, you're going to be the last person. Everyone who reserved one before you is going to get their truck first. It's generally not how it works. At least that's not how it worked with the Model Y. But when you're mass producing vehicles of that size that have to be shipped so far, most of the time it ends up being more relevant to how close are you to the factory. Like, if you live very, very close to Giga Texas, you'll probably get your Cybertruck before everybody else because they don't have to pay, or it doesn't have to take as long to deliver that vehicle for you. Whereas if someone lives in, I don't know, Rhode Island, they'll probably, even if they were early in the reservation list, like even if someone in Rhode Island reserved a Cybertruck like the day the Cybertruck was unveiled, they probably won't get it until months and months later when Tesla's like, okay, now we can start shipping these vehicles way over there. When you finance cash down, no, I've never seen that making a difference. With the Model Y, financing it and doing a bigger down payment, it doesn't make a difference. Because I think Tesla doesn't carry that debt. I think that they do it through, I could be wrong, but I think they do the loans through third parties. So Tesla gets the money regardless of how much you put down. So I don't expect it to make a difference. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the upcoming 25K Tesla in 3 to 4 years? I'm very curious about it because that's obviously super duper competitively priced, and it makes me wonder how it can not cannibalize the Model 3 and why, you know? Like, a lot of people are thinking it's going to, I've seen some people say it's a two-door, but a lot of people say it would be ridiculous for Tesla to make a two-door if they expect it to be good for robo-taxis and that kind of thing. And they want it to be a compelling car, not, and I guess some people just think two-door cars are stupid and meaningless. I think there could be a market for it. It definitely would disappoint probably a large market of people if they found out the 25K Tesla could only sit 2 people, or maybe it sits 4 people, but there's only 2 doors, kind of like the Roadster. But yeah, it's just where are they cutting corners on that thing? How do they justify the existence of the Model 3 if there's going to be a 25K Tesla, and if that 25K Tesla has 4 doors and decent range? Because we're not compromising on range here. They made that a point in Battery Day. They were saying, you know, this isn't going to be like a 100-mile EV that's 25,000. Anyone can really do that right now. But like a compelling 300-mile range EV with fast charging and autopilot hardware and full self-driving hardware, and what's the Model 3 going to separate itself with? What is the Model 3 going to have over that? Like, I don't know. BoChap21 says, what's the downside of getting the VW ID4? A lot of it's fairly subjective. I mean, in my video about the ID4, I talked about, like, I think it's a very compelling option if you're just interested in getting an EV. That one's quite a bit more affordable than the Model Y, but I think probably the main downsides would be the software not being as up to date. But based on all the videos I've watched of the ID4 and the menus and how the apps work and everything, and you know, the ID4 is not planning on ever getting to the point where it can drive itself. You know, Teslas, I feel like, are only a year or 2 away from like level 4 autonomy, where you can basically just activate autopilot or FSD or whatever, and then the car can completely drive itself. Looking at the FSD beta right now, I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. VW ID4, I don't think at any point in its life is going to be able to do stuff like that. It might be able to do lane keep, and it might do adaptive cruise control, but I'd be very surprised if the ID4 was ever able to achieve, you know, stop signs and turns and roundabouts. I don't think they're shooting for that kind of thing. And if they are, it's going to be way slower and not it won't be coming to the mass market anytime soon. And the lack of supercharging access would be a big loss for me. I think that being able to just supercharge at so many different locations in the US with any Tesla is just so simple and easy to remember, whereas the ID4, you're going to have to stick with those more standard, boring, ugly looking public EV charge stations that are a bit more confusing, and you have to download apps and connect them and everything. So yeah, it's the charging network's probably not as fun, and the software is not as fun. Between the holiday update coming for Teslas, that could probably come with new games. You can plug a controller into your Tesla and play with it, and you've got fart mode and you got theater mode. You can watch YouTube and Netflix. ID4 isn't really going to do that. So a Tesla's got its own soul to it a little bit, just being part of that Tesla ecosystem with apps and games and that screen. And I think Tesla really knows how to take advantage of the screen real estate they got in their vehicles, where ID4 just seems like you're not interested in playing games in your car. You're not interested in having supercharging access. You're mainly going to charge it from home and just point A to B. For that market, I could see it being justified because it is quite a bit cheaper than the Model Y right now. So hopefully the single motor Model Y comes out soon, and then the ID4 will have some very stiff competition. Do you think that Tesla will have another price cut for Model 3 this Christmas or early next year? Probably not this Christmas. I think that we're too late in the quarter for Tesla to change anything around price-wise, but pretty much every year that the Model 3 has been around, they've done something with the lineup, whether it's a price cut or added something to give it more features or increase the range. There's never been a full year where the Model 3 remained unchanged and they just sold it as is. So my guess is, yeah, at some point next year, they'll either cut the price or tinker around the website, or who knows, maybe they'll bring back the single motor long range Model 3. I would love that. Please make that be a thing. How many charge cycles will the battery pack with 4680 cells approximately last? Yeah, we don't really know. They didn't give us much information on cycle life, but based on what Drew and Elon talked about, I think it should be pretty high. I don't think it's going to be a low cycle life. It most likely will be much better than the 21 what is it again? I forgot. 2160 cells? The current cells they're using in the Model 3 and Y. I think there was some research being done by, who was it? Jeff Dunn, talking about the 4680 cells, saying that they could achieve a 1,000 to 2,000 cycle life for something pretty high. I just remember it being like you wouldn't have to worry about it, because if they're going to build the batteries to be structural, that means that replacing the battery pack isn't really going to be a thing. So you're going to want to make sure that the batteries last a long, long time. So I think you'll easily be able to hit 1 million miles before facing 2170. Sorry, I forgot the number. You'll probably be able to exceed 1 million miles before you need to think about new batteries or something. Do you think that another company will dethrone Tesla, or will they forever be in the lead? Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that's why the stock price is on kind of a nonstop rise right now, is because if you really know Tesla inside and out, and you know what they're doing, and you know about their factories and their profitability and their services model and their full self-driving advantage and their current advantage in the EV market, like if you really think about where they are and how no one else can really keep up, doesn't really seem like it's possible. I'm trying to imagine a situation where some other company dethrones them and creates a more compelling EV, or is able to make more EVs, or can build factories faster than they can. And I have a hard time visualizing it. Maybe you have a few companies exceed Tesla in some ways, but not always, not in ways that necessarily matter. Let's see. They were talking about 1 million miles at 500 mile range, 1 million, 2,000 cycles. Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's see. When will we have a flying car? The difficulty with flying cars is not the tech. It's the infrastructure of having a bunch of people flying around and taking off and landing all over the place. That's more complicated. Let's see. Crazy Rodzilla says, I absolutely love my Model 3. I've had it since March. Literally get compliments every day I drive it. Got the red with white interior. Can't wait for the Cybertruck, though. That is an excellent choice, Rodzilla, and I love that username. That's awesome. Do you think we might see more stainless steel or otherwise non-rusting vehicles? That'd be great in northern markets. Aiden, you have no clue how much I want that to happen. Just because I love the aesthetic and look of the Cybertruck, and I also am so tired and sick of paint chipping and rocks hitting up on cars and scratching them, and the paint getting worse over time and having to either wrap the car or get a ceramic coating around it. And basically, so many of us have to like baby our vehicles to make sure that they don't lose paint and chip. It's like, can we just skip all that and just make the car out of something durable and structural and rigid and cheap that provides a bunch of durability benefits that allows us to bypass the paint process? Because I kind of hate the whole paint thing. Some people probably love classic, hot rods and vintage vehicles with shiny paint and glossy look or the matte finish. And I'm not about that. I'm just about like functional and efficient. So if you can make me a car without paint on it so I don't have to worry about the paint, especially if the material you use is more durable, that would be great. Whether or not Tesla makes more vehicles out of stainless steel, it will probably depend on how mass production of the Cybertruck goes. Because Elon has talked about how they've never really mass produced a vehicle like that before, one without a paint job and one that's so sharp and edgy, and they can't use a stamping press like they use with other Teslas. So the Cybertruck is going to use a lot more unique, different manufacturing methods. And if they work out okay, and mass production works out pretty seamlessly and they can assume quality control and they don't run into a lot of issues with the steel and it ends up being pretty affordable and cheap to mass produce, then yeah, I could see Tesla bringing it to more things. But if they run into some unexpected problems with Cybertruck production and they're like, oh, we didn't think it would be this complicated, or we didn't think it would be this expensive to buy this machinery to pinch the Cybertruck design in a certain way to get the steel into a certain shape, it's not really been done before to the scale Tesla's trying to reach. So it'll depend on how Cybertruck production goes. But if it goes well, I could definitely see them making more. Let's see. I think Tesla will transition the entire lineup to Cyber. I'd be surprised by that, but I wouldn't be that mad. You think Tesla would make a solar car? Solar is interesting. That's kind of my dream. I love the idea of not having to plug in a vehicle and just being able to just walk out to it and drive it around, and just leaving it parked outside is enough for it to get enough energy. But solar cells are not super efficient enough to the point yet where it would be very practical on EVs, because Elon's talked about it in tweets in the past saying, yeah, we'll have a solar option, and hasn't really followed through on any of it before. I mean, Tesla makes solar panels all the time, right? But they've still yet to release a vehicle with solar panels built in. And now he's saying, yeah, we'll have an option for the Cybertruck to have solar, but I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't make it to production because it's too complicated, or they find out that the energy efficiency isn't good enough. But that's the real trick, is the solar panels. Solar panels typically need a lot of room and a lot of space in order to collect enough of a charge to make an impactful difference. And EVs use a lot of energy, and they don't really have that much space compared to where we normally use solar panels, like on a house, on our roofs, because that has a lot of space. It's in the sun a lot, and our houses use a reasonable amount of power. But basically, with current solar cell technology and doing some math, there's other channels that have done the math. You can look them up. They're believable. Basically, if they put a big solar panel on the top of the Cybertruck, you could be looking at around 15 miles of range added per day, just leaving it parked in the sun. But then think about how hot the interior gets leaving it parked in the sun all day. So you'll probably lose a lot of that energy cooling down the cabin. But someone like me still wouldn't mind that, just for the practicality of knowing that on trips and stuff, if the car is parked outside for a long period of time, it's gaining range and not losing it. That's what excites me the most about companies like Aptera, which I did a video on a few weeks back. They are just pursuing this idea of making the most possible energy efficient vehicles ever, by any means necessary, and that oftentimes means going with a very bizarre non-traditional design. Now, I'm kind of a fan of non-traditional designs if they're functional and practical, so that's why I'm interested in Aptera, because they say they're going to coat their vehicles with solar cells, and the energy efficiency on those cars is so dang low because it's extremely aerodynamic and super lightweight. So they think they can achieve, with the complete solar package, over 40 miles of range a day, which is more than the U.S. national average of daily driven miles. So I think that, until they actually deliver vehicles to customers, it's hard to know for sure if those numbers are real. But still, it's an exciting milestone for them to shoot for. And even if they don't exactly hit those numbers, I still think it's an amazing achievement. So I hope they can get there. When will Tesla release a new vehicle, and what would it be? So Jonathan Rogers, the next vehicle that Tesla has confirmed the existence of but hasn't quite announced yet would be the $25,000 model, which they said would come out in around 3 years. So not very precise, not like exactly 3 years from now. So it probably at the very end of 2023 or the very beginning of 2024, they plan on launching a 25K version. But solar on current Teslas, like if you wanted to just slap some solar cells on the top of a Model 3, would probably just barely cover the energy consumption of your HVAC system and the interior display and that kind of stuff. It would barely add miles. Personally, I wouldn't mind that. I'd just be like, great. I'd just take the extra help with the efficiency. I know it won't charge it, but my idea as to why I think solar panels would be very, very helpful is an example of concern a lot of people have had with EVs is when they go on long distance trips and they leave their vehicle in the airport parking lot for like weeks at a time, because EVs have a little bit of phantom drain compared to traditional internal combustion engine vehicles, which don't really lose much of their range if they're parked doing nothing for weeks at a time. But if you had just a little bit of solar panels, I'm not saying they have to add that much range per day, but but things like Sentry mode sip through your battery fairly quickly if they're parked outside and collecting things walking by and stuff like that. And if you leave your EV parked at an airport for weeks and weeks at a time, you're most likely going to come back to your car and the range will be much lower than it was when you left it. But if it had solar panels on it and you don't need to air condition the cabin and it's going to be parked there for like weeks and weeks at a time, even if the range only adds like 5 miles a day, it would still be great to come back from your trip, get back in the airport parking lot and be like, okay, cool, my car's at 100% now. When I got here, it was at like 60% or whatever, depending on how long you were on your trip or whatever. So I think that would be really nice, and a huge advantage to having solar panels is just knowing that the phantom drain over time of just the car sitting and software updates and Sentry modes, all that stuff, if we could combat that and instead just have a very slow but steady increase in charge as the car is parked, it's very attractive to someone like me because I don't drive very much. In case you're wondering why I don't have an EV myself, it's because I think, especially since my wife and I are working from home, there have been times where we go 4 or 5 days without driving anywhere. But we do drive to the grocery store on occasion, or to, visit someone, or it occasionally happens. I'm not saying we never drive, but we rarely drive. So I live in a sunny climate where there's a lot of sunlight. So if I had an EV with solar panels on it, I could just leave it outside, and there would be several days in the week I don't use it at all. But whenever I do use it, it would probably be at 100%, or, whatever I want to limit the battery to, 80% or whatever. And knowing that I wouldn't have to plug it in because the 1 to 2 times I do drive a month, it'll have enough range. That just sounds awesome. Just don't even have to plug it in. Way cheaper than having to charge it from the grid from your house. And also just better for the environment as a whole. Let the car power itself. And yeah, Chris is right. Camping would be super helpful for that. If you go on camping trips and you're away from an outlet, and you can, you'll be pitching your tent and hanging out and swimming or bike riding or whatever you're doing. And while your car is sitting there parked for a few days as you're camping, it's gaining range, not losing it. That would be great. That would be wonderful. Do I have a Discord server for subscribers? I have a Discord server for everybody. I believe it's in the description of this video. Yeah. How do you feel about Tesla and Apple doing something together? I want them to so bad because I'm a huge fan of Apple and I'm a huge fan of Tesla. But I think there's a lot of bad blood between the two companies because, for one, Apple hired a lot of former Tesla employees to work on Project Titan, which is Apple's self-driving car program. And, I think Elon has said things in the past about how Apple's going to compete head-to-head with us, and there were a few case instances of Apple and Tesla employees being, taking trade secrets from each other and that kind of thing. So I find it very awkward. And also the fact that Apple tried to buy Tesla back in 2013. So it was probably very awkward when Apple was like, hey, we'll buy Tesla for more than their current evaluation, but our one condition is we want you to drop Elon Musk, or at least have Elon Musk step down from more authoritative roles. And Tesla wasn't about that. But you imagine once that deal falls through and the transaction doesn't happen, it's pretty awkward now, right? Because Elon Musk is this big CEO, big famous, one of the richest guys in the world. And you just had this big contract where you tried to push him out of his own company. So that's probably pretty awkward. And maybe that's why Apple and Tesla don't feel like collaborating on anything. There's just kind of bad blood between the two. I want them to put it aside and just start working on, just get some CarPlay features in there and, just some better integration than just the app. Come on, a little bit better than that. Anyway, Jeff, thank you for the super chat. Is 120 hertz really that noticeable? My eyes get sore scrolling on the 12 Pro Max. Will 120 hertz help with my page scrolling eye strain? I don't know if it'll help with your eye strain, but I find it very noticeable, but it's not noticeable to everyone. I was just having a conversation with my buddy Nick today about it, and he was saying he can't see the difference between 60 and 120 hertz, but I definitely can. Anyway, that's not EV. Let's keep it to EV, Jeff. Thank you for the super chat again. Thoughts on all these recent random Model S fires? It is making me really nervous about buying a Model Y versus Ford Transit to live in. I haven't seen any reports on a bunch of Model S fires, and I follow a lot of EV news, so I can tell you that Teslas are about 10 times less likely to catch on fire than internal combustion engine vehicles because, yeah, lithium is flammable, but guess what else is flammable? Gasoline, oil, and gas cars catch on fire all the time, but the media doesn't report on it because it's not that interesting. Or a car caught on fire. Great. On my last drive to San Diego, I drove by a combustion engine car that was caught on fire. It happens with all vehicles, but Teslas are much, much less likely to catch on fire. Jonathan Rogers, thank you for the super chat. Why not carbon fiber instead of stainless steel? For what? Stainless steel is very cheap. Are we talking about Starship now? Yeah, I think Mike's got the answer there. Stainless steel is a very cheap material compared to carbon fiber. Yeah, carbon fiber is very, very pricey. It's a good material, but yeah, it's expensive. Let's see. What about mods for the Cybertruck? A film station, cyber security boat, etc. Steel is very flexible for welding and magnetic attachments. Plus, the bed itself lends well to that. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it'll do to your warranty, but yeah, I'm excited to see what kind of modifications. People are already building their own Cybertrucks, like the Hacksmith channel and stuff, and they're already customizing and designing their own. There was like 1 million pieces of concept art for the Cybertruck when it came out. So I'm sure there will be lots of modifications being done. I just don't know how much Tesla will endorse them or not. Like if you modify your Cybertruck and then you crash it and you want Tesla to work on it, they might be like, you kind of messed it up. I don't want to touch it anymore. But I don't know. Let's see. Taker 610 super chat. It says, is Tesla missing out on the solid state battery? Personally, I don't think so. Solid state batteries always feel like they're 5 years away. I remember reading about them in middle school and high school, and people being like, "There's a game-changing tech with solid state batteries that are going to be great in a few years, and it's just got to be mass produced, and we're really close on the brink of making something huge." And then 5 years go by, and they're like, we'll get there. Eventually we'll get there, and it's always 5 years away. It's always in the hypothetical land. But basically, my opinion on solid state batteries is I'll believe it when I see it. But I'm not seeing it right now. And there's a lot of BS and there's a lot of chit chat in the battery. There's 1 million battery startup companies that there's all kinds of different battery startups that are like, oh, our next generation cells were way better efficiency and way cheaper to build. And then you read about them and then years go by and they never do anything with it. So honestly, like, even if the science backs it up, even if on paper you're like, hey, this makes sense and here's the research and here's the chart the company has provided, even if all the tech and science adds up to making amazing battery technology, if no one is willing to upfront the capital to mass produce it and scale it and actually bring it to market, it doesn't really matter. Like whoever has the capital and whoever has the resources and infrastructure to scale their battery production and bring it to mass market vehicles, they're going to decide what the next generation battery tech is. If you make some type of next generation battery that's so great and so much better, but you're not willing to mass produce it and no one else is, doesn't really matter. Is it really that next generation if you just build it once in a lab and then it's never put into anything? So in my opinion, I believe Tesla and Elon and Drew, after watching Battery Day, when they say that they have done extensive deep dive research on batteries. They buy more batteries than anyone on the planet. So it's in their best interest to be mass producing and buying the most energy efficient, most practical batteries for electric vehicles. And if there's some company out there that's able to build batteries better than they can, they would most likely give them all the money they have, because that's the biggest bottleneck of production, right? How fast can we build these batteries and how good can the batteries get? That's the big bottleneck here. So whoever has the option, Tesla will buy them out. Tesla will buy batteries from them or partner with them. And that's why they're partnering with all the best battery producers in the world, whether it be CATL, Panasonic, and LG Chem. And now they're going to start building batteries themselves. If someone else comes up with something better, I think they're going to buy them. But they haven't. So my guess is Tesla knows their fair share about solid-state batteries and knows either something we don't or knows they're not scalable or practical enough, whereas the 4680 cells they talked about are real. They're mass-producing them as we speak. A lot of rumors that they've already built them into vehicles and they're already using them, and they've already made a few Model Y prototypes with 4680 cells. They've already got the Plaid Model S with 4680 cells, and they say the Semi is going to use it, and they're getting ready for mass production in Giga Berlin, which is going to use those cells. So I'm more about the concrete, like show me something real here, you know, like show me something that you can mass produce and build millions and millions of them. Don't be like, well, I read about this one company whose website says their batteries are good, so I think they have the better battery. It's like, doesn't matter unless they're putting it in something. I don't care. But good question, because I know there's a lot of talk in the battery game right now. Jeff asks, what is your dream Tesla vehicle? Cybertruck for me. Yeah, I think I'm with you there too, Jeff. I haven't driven it yet, so I'm not sure if I should exactly say that's the definitive best vehicle, but I would also be much more interested in a smaller Cybertruck that's not as gargantuan, a more compact one. I don't need it to seat 6. I don't need to sit 6 people in the truck, and I don't need a 6-foot bed for my use. I wouldn't mind more of a 5-foot or 4.5-foot bed if it's more, but I like the Cybertruck aesthetic. So a Cybertruck mini of some kind, I would be all about that. Or I would also be totally fine or invested in a $25K Cyber sedan. We did a video on that a few weeks back, the Cyber car. If they made a DeLorean-looking sedan that was all stainless steel and had autopilot and supercharging and all that, that would be awesome. So, yeah, anything Cyber. My dream car doesn't have doesn't have paint on it. I'd be interested in making a Cyber horse trailer for my wife. There you go, Mike. I want that. What's going on with the Cyber ATV? Yeah, not much. I haven't heard anything. I'm guessing they probably want to focus on building the truck first, and then maybe when they've built a few trucks, then they'll start working on the ATV. Let's see. Audie says, just came from another video of yours. Oh, cool. Jeff super chatted again and says, how much better would the Aptera sell if it was a 4-door, 4-wheel vehicle with less range but more space? How well would it sell if it was a completely different vehicle? I don't know. That's a good question. Less range but more space. Probably not that great, honestly. 4-door, 4-wheel vehicle. What you're basically describing is a Model 3 with under 200 miles of range. I guess you're just saying, like, would a cheaper Model 3 with less range sell pretty good? Probably. But to be honest, there's a lot of EVs with sub 200 mile ranges that are a lot cheaper than Model 3s. However, they don't sell as well. Model 3 and Model Y, kind of the top sellers when it comes to popular EVs in the world. So Tesla, and I think Elon is correct in assuming that if you want to get a lot of people to switch over to electric, you have to make longer range. You can't just get along with the whole 100 miles is fine for most people. It's like, yeah, it probably is for day-to-day driving, but the market has spoken and been very clear about, we want to make cars. People want to buy cars that they can use every day of the year, not buy cars that they can use 90% of the year. And then 10% of the year, they're just out of luck. When you're dropping that kind of money on an EV, you want to be able to say, yeah, I can go on road trips. I can go far. I can drive it around town. It's practical, even if, sure, most day-to-day driving would be fine with a 100-mile range. People want extra. Okay, thank you for all the super chats, Jeff. Can you do a vid or write an ebook on how to have a successful relationship? You seem to have it figured out, and you're the only person I know who does. I don't know. No one's ever asked me to do that before. Maybe I will. That's a good question. I wasn't planning on it, but I'll think about it. Thank you. Taker again, super chat. It says, does Cybertruck need its own SC with its width and trailer? Does it need its own supercharger? No, I mean, without a trailer, you could charge it at standard superchargers. It will be pretty packed. I've seen a few renders and concepts of what the Cybertruck would look like at most Tesla superchargers. It wouldn't need its own necessarily, but you're right. If it was carrying a trailer, it wouldn't be that bad an idea to make more dedicated superchargers just for Cybertrucks, but it actually wouldn't be that complicated to make superchargers that could support both. They just have to be pull-through. Which some superchargers already are, but I don't think most are. There's a handful of superchargers where you don't have to back into them. You can drive all the way through them. So you just kind of drive up to the stall and stop. And if you had a Cybertruck with a trailer, you would want to drive through the stall and stop. And as long as the parking space is long enough, you wouldn't be in anybody's way. My idea that I've tweeted a little while back was that the megacharger network Tesla is planning on building for the semi-truck should also, whatever port they're putting on the Tesla Semi, because I know it's not the standard Tesla port. They're using this huge, big plug. They haven't really reached a standard yet, but apparently they're working with other EV companies to try to reach an open standard because they don't want to run into the issue they're having right now with Tesla superchargers and CCS chargers and DC chargers. There's all these different standards. They want to avoid that for the heavy-duty EVs like the Tesla Semi. My point is that maybe all the Cybertrucks or maybe just the tri-motor Cybertruck should have that giant plug that the Tesla Semi has because, for one, it's going to have a huge battery pack. If it's supposed to go 500 miles with 3 motors and that giant truck like that, it's going to have a massive battery pack, probably like 200 kilowatt hours or maybe more. So you're going to want a larger plug anyway. And all of the Tesla semis, of course, are towing big trailers, and megachargers are going to be built to be drive-through, so you don't have to back into them. You can just drive through the stall, plug in, and then drive out. So if you're going to build a bunch of megachargers with pull-through stalls, put that port on the Cybertruck so that people towing with it can also take advantage of megachargers. So the only Teslas that can go to the Tesla megacharger network are the Semi, but also Cybertrucks. Maybe, and like I said, if you want to simplify it and make it easier for the pricing, maybe just put that on the tri-motor option, because I think most people who plan on towing on long distance trips with the Cybertruck are getting the tri-motor option because they need as much range as possible, whereas people who plan on towing and doing long distance trips probably aren't going to buy a 300-mile truck knowing that it gets cut down to 150 miles when they're towing or something like that. So if you can put dual ports and put a regular Tesla charge plug and then put the semi-charge plug on all the Cybertrucks, that would also be great, but I don't know how expensive or complicated that is or how much extra wiring has to go into it. Maybe even make it a little checkout at, when you're configuring your Cybertruck, it's like, would you like to add a Tesla semi-charge plug access for an extra $1,000 or something like that? Some people would probably pay for it. Will the Cybertruck still have side mirrors? If they wanted to release it right now, like if the factory was done and they were ready to mass produce the Cybertruck, they would have to put mirrors on it, yeah. Law has not changed. So unless the law changes sometime soon, they got to put mirrors on it. The user themselves, if you take delivery of a Cybertruck, you could take the mirrors off. That wouldn't be illegal. But Tesla, as the automaker, would have to deliver them with mirrors attached. Tesla could make them really easy to detach, though, if they wanted to. They could make them magnetic. They could slap them on there with glue or duct tapes just so that the user can be like, oops, it fell off. But let's see. When will Elon give us more information on the Cybertruck? Yeah, I like how you ask that like I have the answer. December 31st. I just have all the answers. I don't know. I wish I did, but I can confidently tell you as soon as there is any slight new information on the Cybertruck, I'll be making videos on it because I'm a huge fan of it. Taker, super chatted again. Thank you. Guessing Semi might need a 1 megawatt hour pack. Thoughts? Yeah, it makes sense. If they want to reach the numbers that Elon's talked about with the range between 500 miles with a full payload, and now he's saying that it's going to be closer to like 600 miles, and in time they see that range getting closer to, 600 miles sounds about right. With a huge payload on the back, you're going to need a huge battery pack to move that. It's just physics. Like if you plan on moving that much weight, you're going to need a lot of energy. So 1 megawatt hour sounds believable, but with the 4680 cell architecture and making them structural in the Semi and how well they stack together with that larger cell, they've already confirmed the Semi will be using the next generation cells. It should be pretty doable in a not too crazy expensive way. So right now, if you wanted to use the 2170 cells to make a 1 megawatt hour battery pack, yeah, that would be pretty expensive and probably really heavy. But with the new technologies they're implementing that they talked about on Battery Day, it should be pretty price competitive to the point that they can charge $180,000 for the Semi with a 1 megawatt hour battery pack, which is insane to think about. How much money will Tesla save by not having to paint an entire truck line? Ooh, probably a lot if you think about it, because Giga Berlin, if you've been watching the construction of Berlin, you'd know that the largest part of the facility that's not just steel beams, but also giant concrete sections with multiple floors, and it took a long time to get the foundational work for that part of the factory set up. That is all just the paint shop. If you go look at a Gigafactory layout, like even in Shanghai, even at Berlin, and probably even Texas, if you look out the amount of space of every factory that is just dedicated to the paint job, it's a pretty huge section. So if you can bypass that whole process and you don't have to have a drying section, you don't need all that paint coming in, and you don't need all these machines that it analyze the quality control of the paint, which maybe Tesla's not using very much right now anyway. But like, that is a huge part. I don't know the exact number, but I imagine it could be close to like 10 to 20% savings. Maybe that's too much. I don't know. But I imagine it's pretty huge if you consider how much of the factory they have to build just for the paint shop. Like, my guess would be they can save 10 to 20% of the overall cost just by not having paint on it. I could be wrong, though. I think a lot of the money comes from infrastructure. Like once you build out the paint shop and once you have a big section of the factory just dedicated to paint, well, you've already paid all that money. So once it's operating, the operating costs might not be that high. And, Giga Texas is going to have a paint job because they're building the Model Y first. So they're still going to spend all that money on the paint shop. So it's hard to find an exact finite number that's like it saves you this much. But I know that with the Cybertruck being steel, painting it would not have worked very well. So paint doesn't work well with steel. You have to be very, very careful with how you paint it, and it wouldn't stick very well, and different compositions of steel don't hold on to paint as well. So for the Cybertruck's sake, it would be like almost impossible to get a decent paint job on it. So you're better off just wrapping it. Let's see. What is the greatest thing that the Tesla Semi will accomplish, asks Tech Circle. I would say probably the fact that semis, while they're not a huge percentage of vehicles sold every year, they are a huge percentage of emissions. So considering Tesla's mission statement, I think that the greatest thing the Semi is accomplishing is getting rid of those huge, and very dangerous, by the way. I've read several stories of semi-truck drivers falling asleep or being distracted on their phones and killing people because they're moving just huge amounts of weight. So the sooner we can get safer semis on the road with better automatic braking systems and also semis that aren't pumping huge amounts of fumes into the atmosphere, that's very important. Not just, it doesn't just look cool. For one, that's part of it. The Tesla Semi is just very cool looking, and it's probably going to be very easy and convenient for truck drivers to drive because it's going to have autopilot and full self-driving, and you can jackknifing is impossible because of how the wheels turn and that kind of thing. So there's really nothing but benefits by going with the Tesla Semi. It's just a matter of how quickly can you build them. That's the main problem. Jeff Super Chatted says, what categories do you search when you look up EVs, Teslas only, or do you search them all? I don't really search that much. I mainly just subscribe to a few different channels. And if I'm looking for news on new EVs, I would much rather read Electric or Teslarati or check out Twitter, use Apple News and that kind of thing. I don't really just browse YouTube for new information on EVs. That's normally, I found a content creator I enjoy and I'm going to keep following them. That's what I mainly use YouTube for. Freaking cyber boat, I'm done, says Lucas. Don't get me wrong, I want a cyber boat too. When's your guess when the Austin factory will start building vehicles? So yeah, definitely. I know I plug him a lot, but it's because he's working really, really hard and I don't want his work to be unnoticed. Jeff Roberts literally flies a very high quality drone over Giga Texas like every day, sometimes twice a day, and he edits them, and he has great he has a great flight path where you can see all kinds of detail. If you're looking at how they're building it right now, I'm pretty sure Texas is going to hold up to the tradition of gigafactories being operational within a year of breaking ground. So similar to Giga Berlin being ahead of schedule and Texas being built really quick, I'm going to guess around Q3 is when they're going to start having vehicles come out of the factory. But sadly, those are going to be Model Ys, not Cybertrucks. It would be cool if they were Cybertrucks too, though. I agree. That would be awesome. So my guess is it is officially Giga Texas, by the way. That's what Elon has called it several times. So I know there's been a lot of debate on some people calling it Giga Austin, Terra Factory, or Terra Texas. And Elon has several times now referred to it as Giga Texas. So that is the official naming. But yeah, I'm going to guess Q3. So around, when does Q3 actually start? Was it June, July, August? So around August, September of next year, probably is when they'll start pumping out cars. John Check, thank you for the super chat. What do you think about a 50 cal machine gun mount for the military on the back of the Cybertruck? I mean, it sounds cool. I doubt many average truck drivers will be able to get that. But yeah, that's the cool thing about the Cybertruck is it feels built for the apocalypse, and that's the type of gun that, you know, you can strap it on the back of that thing and it blends in pretty well. It fits. Jeff Super Chatted says, why aren't you watching UFC right now? Not your thing. I don't have a way to watch UFC, so no, it's not my thing, sadly. Thank you for the super chat. Guardian of the Wills? Sorry if I got that wrong. Super Chatted says Cybertruck means paint with all the black parts. Yeah, but that's not what people mean. Those are probably going to be painted as they come to the factory, you know. That's not going to be like, there won't be a paint shop just for the little trim around the wheel well. Those are probably going to be either plastic or like heavy duty plastic or metal that's been painted. I don't think the trim itself is steel. I think that's the part of the car that'll be plastic. Jeff Super Chatted says, thanks for making all these awesome EV videos. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. Oh, thank you. Thank you all for watching them. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Taker 610 Super Chatted says, paint delete option on sexy coming. I would be for it. I would be very curious how many people would opt to not paint their Model S, 3, X, or Y, because it's not a bad idea. Even if they could save a slight amount of money, you know, even if it was like $100 off, I think some people would do it if they knew they were going to wrap it. I just know so many people who wrap their Teslas anyway. So it's like, if you're going to spend all that money on a wrap, yeah, just save Tesla some time and skip the paint shop, because a lot of people complain about the paint jobs already. So Manuel is saying, can you show your RPM on your EV channel? I like how it says RPM, my rotations per minute. On your tech channel. I've heard there is pretty high CPM on videos about cars. There is, I'm looking at the chat in the stream right now, so I would have to, well, let me see how hard it would be to pull up. It's kind of buried in settings. Oh, you know what? It's almost 4:30. I'm sorry. I don't really have the. I've got to pull up the right settings. But yes, you are generally correct. The CPMs for automotive videos on YouTube are a bit higher than tech videos. So the EV channel can make more money with less views compared to the tech channel. But yeah. Cam is saying Model 3 or Cybertruck for first Tesla. I think the Cybertruck is the better vehicle, but if you've never owned a Tesla before and you're not really a pickup truck guy and you don't want to drive a huge, I bet the Model 3 is easier to drive. Let's just say that. Like the Cybertruck, I'm sure is fun to drive and everything. And I think it's much more practical, and for the price and what you're getting out of it, it's an awesome vehicle. But Model 3 is probably a lot more easier to get used to and approachable if you're just coming from another sedan and you're coming from a typical gas car transitioning to a Model 3. It's probably an easy, simple transition, where the Cybertruck is probably a lot to take in all at once. So yeah, I would say Model 3 probably better for the amateur, like first car, not used to driving very much, whereas Cybertruck, its market is going to be better for those used to driving huge vehicles. Jonathan Abraham asks, what percentage of owners do you think will regularly use a $150 to $200 FSD monthly subscription? It probably wouldn't be that high, right? Because that's a very, very high subscription price. But yeah, I would say probably around 10%, maybe less. Because on one hand, the full self-driving suite is really awesome, and that is really cool that it would be able to drive itself, and you would basically just have to oversee it and intervene occasionally. But it is a lot of money. I mean, if you don't plan on owning the car for 15, 20 years, see, that's the thing. It depends on how much FSD costs to buy outright at the time they launch the subscription. It could still be $10,000, but they might increase it to $12,000 again. And if the price of buying full self-driving outright continues to increase, then a $150 to $200 monthly subscription would start to make more sense, because you would have to do the math on how long would I have to own this car for it to make more sense for me to buy FSD versus subscribing to it. So if it's something like that, I mean, everybody pull out your calculators right now. Like do the simple math. It's pretty easy, actually. Like there's 12 months a year. Let's round up. Let's say it's $200 a month for full self-driving. That would be $2,400 a year, which means after 6 years of paying for that, you will have spent $14,400, which may seem really high, but with the price of FSD going up all the time, who knows? Maybe that won't be that high. So like, if you're the type of person that is buying a car and you plan on replacing it in the next 4 or 3 years, then it would make more sense to subscribe to it. Or if it's month to month, which I would be very interested in as someone who doesn't drive very much. You know, most of the time I'm working from home and we only drive to the grocery store and back. So I really like full self-driving. I think that software is cool. I would much rather subscribe to it once or twice a month out of the year when I'm going on a road trip, and then just unsubscribe from it for the rest of the year when I'm not driving very much. So in that situation, yeah, it depends on people's driving habits and stuff. You'd get me maybe in the summertime or the wintertime and going on a road trip. I would subscribe to it, pay the $200, but then afterwards unsubscribe from it, because I don't need to keep subscribing to FSD if the car is just going to be sitting out in the garage. Okay. We got to wrap up here pretty soon. But thank you for all the great questions, guys. I appreciate it. I keep missing your question. I'm sorry. I'll try to find it. What do you think about Tesla's drop in market share in Norway and Netherlands? Should we be worried, seeing as they are a mature European EV markets? I don't think you should be worried, because they're fairly small markets as is, and Tesla has a massive production problem where they can't build enough to meet demand. So the problem is not, we're not doing good enough in Norway and Netherlands. It's probably because Tesla has had a huge market share there for years. So if a bunch of people buy Teslas in Norway and the Netherlands, they're not going to keep buying Teslas because they already got them. People who want Teslas have bought them, and now the only other EVs that are catching up in the Netherlands and Norway are vehicles that don't really compare to Teslas and kind of serve a completely different market. So the automotive market's a huge one. There's plenty of room for everybody. It's not like Tesla has to be 100% market share to be successful. So I wouldn't be worried about it. Flashberry says, when do you think Elon will reveal the refreshed Cybertruck? I don't think it's much of a reveal more than just a tinker. So don't expect a drastically different looking Cybertruck, I imagine. The updated design he's talking about is very, very small, minor details of like the center seam is a bit more level, that this window is a little taller, and here's what the mirrors look like, and the steering wheel is more complete. It doesn't look like a racing steering wheel because that's currently not legal. Norway and Europe is just waiting for the Model Y, like John Smith said. Yeah, exactly. Once Giga Berlin is operational, Tesla will have a all new kind of lead in Europe that they don't have now. And they're already doing great in Europe. So, all right. I think this will be the last question or message. Nacha Nick Provost, sorry if I got that wrong, says, I was thinking pre-order 5 Cybertrucks with FSD at the current price. Wait for the truck to come out, which FSD might be 20 to 30K more than as you have it delivered, sell it for a profit. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll be 20 to 30K more, but people who reserved the Cybertruck with full self-driving when it first came out, they've already had a appreciating asset because now full self-driving is 10K. And by the time the Cybertruck comes out, it'll probably more be like 15. I don't know if it'll be $20,000 to $30,000 more a year from now, because Cybertruck deliveries would probably be pretty close a year from now. So I don't think 20 to 30,000 more, but probably maybe 4,000 or 5,000 more. We'll see. But all right, guys, I'm sorry I couldn't answer all your questions, but I appreciate all of them. I appreciate the super chats. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I also just wanted to say that I'm going to be taking a little break, a little vacation for the holidays. So there will be, sad to say, quite a bit less videos for the next week. I might end up coming back to work briefly if there's a bunch of EV news or something I'm missing, but there's a high likelihood that there will be significantly less videos for the next week, but I'll be back before the end of the year producing regular content and that kind of thing. So anyways, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all for your support, and